Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion,
I'm Scint.
and we are continuing our playthrough of Final Fantasy V and our discussion of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
And today we are diving into one of the concepts that, well, gets a little thorny because there's so much baggage behind it. What is a soul?
That is a loaded question.
I mean, if you want to take the easy way out, it's the bottom of your feet.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Look, if I didn't make the foot pun, we wouldn't have a leg to stand on.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
I can keep going. I'll just toe the line until you actually start the discussion.
Oh my word, fine. We are talking about horcruxes. And all of the associated insanity that comes therewith. So, I think the best way to start this particular discussion would be to more precisely define what exactly a horcrux is. In the Harry Potter series, a horcrux is a container that holds a person's soul. Or, more importantly, a fragment of a person's soul. And in the mythology of Harry Potter, much like many other fantasy series, souls are known, proven, extant things. That they exist, it is known they exist, and as to some degree horcruxes prove, there is magic that exists that is designed to do things with them.
Yep, and honestly, my question for this, how this is introduced is, well, within the context of this story, we don't officially learn what a horcrux is until the book is very, very nearly done. Like, about page 496 is when we finally get the conversation about them, because Dumbledore wants Harry to learn about it from Slughorn's altered memory. So it's not until Harry gets the memory out of Slughorn that we actually get the explanation, even though, since Dumbledore knew perfectly well what he was looking for, he could have very easily explained to Harry what it was at the time. So Harry would have, felt more urgency in the recovery of this memory to know what information Voldemort had. But, Dumbledore gonna dumble.
The impression I got was that Dumbledore was not completely certain that he was dealing with horcruxes, and he wanted that confirmed before he ran off and started doing things. Which, still not great, but I guess to a certain degree understandable.
I mean, this is going off for our topic, but this is once again proving that Dumbledore does not really know how to solve these problems that he is, the most powerful and best equipped wizard in the world to deal with, without manipulating a 16-year-old into figuring out how to do the groundwork for him. And quite frankly, he knew Voldemort better than basically anybody, could tell a mile away this is not someone to be trusted. Of course, Voldemort, since Dumbledore knew he feared death more than anything, would find any means possible to avoid death, such as through the Horcrux, which is one of the more notable ways of avoiding death. Even it does involve, destroying your soul in the process. But yeah, Dumbledore had enough reasonable cause he could have told Harry, "This is what I suspect. I need to get this memory from Slughorn to confirm or deny, and then we can work from there." But again, this is giving Dumbledore more credit as a role model than he freaking deserves.
Yep.
Anyway, I'll just go ahead and quote the memory. Sir, I wondered what you know about horcruxes. Slughorn stared at him, his thick fingers absent-mindedly caressing the stem of his wine glass. Project for defense against the dark arts, is it? But Harry could tell that Slughorn knew perfectly well this was not schoolwork. Not exactly, sir. I came across the term while reading and didn't fully understand it. No, well, you'd be hard-pushed to find a book at Hogwarts that'll give you details on horcruxes, Tom. That's very dark stuff, very dark indeed. But you obviously know all about them, sir. I mean, a wizard like you... Sorry, I mean, if you can't tell me, obviously. I just knew if anyone could tell me, you could, so I thought I'd ask. It was very well done, thought Harry. The hesitancy, the casual tone, the careful flattery, none of it overdone. He had done too much experience. Harry had too much experience of trying to wheedle information out of reluctant people to not recognize a master at work. He could tell that Riddle wanted the information very, very much, perhaps had been working toward this for weeks. Well, said Slughorn, not looking at Riddle, but fiddling with the ribbon on the top of his crystallized pineapple. Well, it can't hurt to give you an overview, of course, just so you understand the term. A horcrux is the word used for an object in which a person has concealed part of their soul. I don't quite understand how that works, though, said Riddle. His voice was controlled, but Harry could sense his excitement. You split your soul, you see, and hide part of it in an object outside the body. Then even if one's body is attacked or destroyed, one cannot die, for part of the soul remains earthbound and undamaged. But of course, existence in such a form... If you had wanted, Tom, very few, death would be preferable. There's more, but I'd rather break this up a bit.
Right.
So, clearly it's something that Tom already knows about. Sorry, Voldemort, this is the flash when I'm using Tom, and yeah. He already knew about it, and just wanted to figure out the process for how I can do it. And we know that this is while Voldemort is still at school, probably Harry's age, I think he's 16, 17 here. So, yeah, a minor already fully prepared to do whatever it takes to gain power and immortality. But kids are innocent. How do you split your soul? Well, Slughorn said uncomfortably, you must understand that the soul is supposed to remain intact and whole. Splitting it is an act of violation, it is against its nature. But how do you do it? By an act of evil, the supreme act of evil, by committing murder. Killing rips the soul apart.
Which, there's probably something to be said for the idea of there's nothing in the world worse than that you can do than murder. That's obviously a completely different discussion, but it is interesting to me that that seems to have been where Rowling decided this is the most evil thing anyone can ever do.
I will say, like, not that I usually want to defend Rowling, but on this case, Harry Potter was intended for children.
Yeah, no, I understand.
The crimes I can think of that debate whether or not they can take the awful crown from murder are not things I want to have this random 10-year-old I've just made up reading about, if I can help it.
Yep, completely.
So
fair.
let's stick with murder because I don't want them getting ideas. But I don't understand, though, just out of curiosity, I mean, would one horcrux be much use? Can you only split your soul once? Wouldn't it be better, make you stronger to have your soul in more pieces? I mean, for instance, isn't 7 the most powerfully magical number? Wouldn't 7? Merlin's beard, Tom, yelped Slughorn. 7, isn't it bad enough to think of killing one person? In any case, bad enough to divide the soul, but to rip it into 7 pieces. Slughorn looked deeply troubled now. He was gazing at Riddle as though he had never seen him plainly before, and Harry could tell that he was regretting entering this conversation at all. Of course, this is all hypothetical what we're discussing, isn't it? All academic. Yes, sir, of course, said Riddle quickly. And here we actually get to the point that explains why Slughorn wanted to cover this up. But all the same, Tom, keep it quiet what I've told. That's to say what we've discussed. People wouldn't like to think we've been chatting about horcruxes. It's a banned subject at Hogwarts, you know. Dumbledore's particularly fierce about it. So, yeah, Slughorn did not want Dumbledore to know that he'd been violating his rules about talking about something this flagrantly dangerous. And we know that, well, multiple murders was not a problem for him. I mean, he's Wizard Hitler. So, how does this relate to what we should talk about with the soul, though? In this case, we're viewing it purely as the state of existence. By keeping part of your soul intact and separate from the part of your body that can be harmed, you can continue living and avoid dying. So as long as a fraction of your soul has not been damaged, you get to live. Some restrictions apply, not valid in Nebraska or Hawaii. I don't know the rest of the usual disclaimer meme here. Because, well, Harry doesn't, during the scene, have a flashback to the first book when he encounters the hooded figure drinking unicorn blood to sustain himself.
Yep.
I was ripped from my body, less than spirit, less than the meanest ghost, but still I was alive. So, souls very, very much do have a very loaded connotation because there's such a strong religious implication to them in many parts of the world, the United States included, which is where we're coming from on this perspective. So, keeping the soul intact is a huge, huge thing, and would explain, like, you can't do something this awful to other people or it will destroy you as an entity who can exist. But for someone like Riddle, he doesn't care. His soul does not matter to him. The state of his soul, he can rip it to shreds as long as he gets to stay alive. Being able to physically exist is more important to him than anything else.
It's also made, well, not clear would be the wrong word, but it's also heavily implied that splitting your soul affects a lot of you as a person. It messes with your ability to empathize with your emotions and all that fun stuff that all this stuff that is caused by doing that kind of damage to your soul is not something that Voldemort cares about. He does not care if, say, his ability to show empathy is damaged. He does not care if his capability for personal interactions is changed, or his ability to whatever the other side effects of damaging your soul are. He does not care about that stuff.
He cares about his legacy, which is interesting because for some people, their soul would be their legacy. The way they interact with other people, the memories they leave behind, so on and so forth. But no, Voldemort only cares about flexing his power, which is evident further along when Dumbledore discusses the memory with Harry. You think he succeeded then, sir? Asked Harry. He made a horcrux, and that's why he didn't die when he attacked me. He had a horcrux hidden somewhere. A bit of his soul was safe. A bit, or more. 4 years ago, I received what I considered certain proof that Voldemort had split his soul. Where? How? You handed it to me, Harry. The diary, Riddle's diary, the one giving instructions on how to reopen the Chamber of Secrets. I'm skipping around a bit just because this is lengthy and I don't want to read the whole book. You'd be here all night.
Yep.
What intrigued and alarmed me most was that the diary had been intended as a weapon as much as a safeguard. I still don't understand. Well, the works as a horcrux is supposed to work. In other words, the fragment of soul concealed inside it was kept safe and had undoubtedly played its part in preventing the death of its owner. But there could be no doubt that Riddle really wanted that diary read, wanted the piece of his soul to inhabit or possess somebody else, so that Slytherin's monster would be unleashed again. He didn't want his hard work to be wasted, said Harry. He wanted people to know he was Slytherin's heir because he couldn't take credit at the time. Quite correct. But don't you see, Harry, that if he intended the diary to be passed to or planted on some future Hogwarts student, he was being remarkably blasé about that precious fragment of his soul concealed within. The point of a horcrux is, as Professor Slughorn explained, to keep part of the self hidden and safe, not to fling it into somebody else's path and run the risk that they might destroy it. As indeed happened, that particular fragment of that soul is no more, you saw to that. The careless way in which Voldemort regarded this horcrux seemed most ominous to me. It suggested that he must have made or been planning to make more horcruxes so that the loss of his first would not be so detrimental. I did not wish to believe it, but nothing else seemed to make sense. So, Voldemort has so thoroughly shredded his sense of empathy that even for himself, one fragment of his soul, one piece of himself does not matter so long as the rest of him gets to live on. It's all about being able to manipulate and control forever and show that he is the biggest bully on the playground and that will never change. And he's going to stay alive forever. None can kill him. He is unstoppable and all who laughed at him will pay. You know, nice healthy stuff.
Yeah.
So he's made himself impossible to kill by murdering other people. Why couldn't he make a Sorcerer's Stone or steal one if he was so interested in immortality? Well, you know, he tried to do just that 5 years ago. But there are several reasons why I think a Sorcerer's Stone would appeal less than horcruxes to Lord Voldemort. While the elixir of life does indeed extend life, it must be drunk regularly for all eternity if the drinker is to maintain their immortality. Therefore, Voldemort would be entirely dependent on the elixir, and if it ran out or was contaminated, or if the stone was stolen, he would die like any other man. So, even though there are other, better ways to achieve what he wanted, Voldemort doesn't want to put that kind of maintenance in this. He wants to just have what he wants and have it now. A spoiled child demanding dessert. And I think this would be a good time to point out, what is it usually called when people do something this horrific? What's the adjective used?
Monstrous.
Monstrous, inhuman. And if the soul is what makes you human, then by definition a horcrux destroying your soul would be inhuman. More telling is the fact that, as Dumbledore will go on to point out, I keep mixing up those two names and I have no idea why. I think it's just because they have similar cadences. Dumbledore and Voldemort.
Mm-hmm. They're both
Yep.
overly fancy wizard names with 3 syllables.
Yeah. But as Dumbledore does point out, as a child, Voldemort had a habit of taking trophies from other people, and that's what he chose to use for his vessels. The ring that shows his ancestry, a cup that belonged to one of Hufflepuff's descendants, etc., etc., etc. They are always going to be something valuable to somebody else that he took away. So, in addition to proving himself completely inhuman by destroying what makes him have any semblance of humanity, he is also making a statement that he still, even in his damaged beyond repair state, sees himself as a higher being. You know, again, this is a well-adjusted child who will go far one day. Nothing to be concerned about here. It also kind of raises the question here of, well, if Harry and Dumbledore are setting out to destroy the Horcruxes, what does that mean in reference to killing someone is the worst thing you could do, and you could actually do this to create your own Horcrux? Would killing Voldemort count?
That's...
Because it's not really said. Because all we get for sure is that you have to commit murder. You have to take a human life. But is there some level of intent behind it? Like, can you, oops, I accidentally, I committed manslaughter, this wasn't intentional, might as well not waste it? Or do you have to actually go in with the intent of, yep, it's time for some first degree? Because that's probably worth debating, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of think it would be intent-focused, because we've seen, like, all the Unforgivable curses, it is said you have to have intent behind them for them to actually work. And I think that making a horcrux would be a little bit beyond unforgivable, you know?
Just a tad.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where else to go from here.
I mean, I think that's pretty thoroughly covered the subject of horcruxes and all of the fun associated with creating one or dealing with one. I don't really have anything to add, personally.
Alright, in that case, we will see you next time.
Bye.